Good morning. My name is Ken. I'm an alcoholic. I feel like I'm at the midnight mission somewhere. Like you guys had to come in to get coffee. Like if you open your hymnlets to the hymn number 4, let's all gather at the river. Well, I'm not a morning person, but here I am, and I'm happy to be here. The topic is simplicity in spirituality. And I can only share with you my experience up to this point. And whatever I say today is always subject to change as I have new experiences and I get more awareness. I mean, that's just the way it is. But I had to anchor it onto something. And what I anchored it onto for me, and I'll share it with you, and if somehow you have a whole different version of it, that's perfect. In the 11th step, it talks about spirituality as being an individual adventure. Each one of us is going to go about it in our own way. And we're going to follow our own path. And that's absolutely correct. But there's one constant to every path. No exception. And that constant is the now. Right now. You can take any path you want, but you can't do it absent being in this moment. Bill Wilson had a theme to every spiritual writing that he ever did, and that was, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him Thursday. That's not the way it is. It's may you find him now. So this entity, whatever you want to call it, however you want to describe it, is ever present. And if you're an alcoholic or a human being like me, you're not. You're constantly someplace else. If you take your typical day, you would see most of it, maybe as much as 95% or more, was lived in memory and anticipation. It had nothing to do with this moment, had nothing to do with this now. When people say they feel separated from whatever it is that gives them sustenance and contentment and serenity, it's because they're not in the moment. They're not in the now. If you take the word now itself and you spell it backwards, it's won, W-O-N. When you've learned to live in the now, you've won. And the paradox is, it's the only place we can live. We don't have any options. But we do. Because we think we do. And that's what happens here. We are never in the moment. I always remember the story of the guy who was in Vegas and he met this beautiful woman and he said he'd like to spend the night with her. And she said, absolutely no way. And he said, I'd give you $10,000. So within a moment, they're up in a room on a bed, totally nude, and she says to him, kiss me on the lips, and he does, and he says, oh, I don't know. She says, then kiss me on the neck, and he does, he says, oh, I don't know. Finally, she says, kiss me on the breast, and he does, and he says, oh, I don't know. She said, what don't you know? He said, I don't know where I'm going to get the $10,000. That's alcoholic thinking. You're right in the middle of a good thing, and now you're projecting the problem. That's why we never have experiences. We have happenings. Bill Wilson, when he talked about his experience in the Winchester Cathedral, it's written so poignantly and so directly at what the problem is, and that is, he said, for a brief moment, I had needed and wanted God to be present. And he came. But his presence was soon blotted out by worldly clamors, most of which were within myself. And if you look up what a clamor is, it's a loud and constant noise. And that's what we call thinking. It's a loud and constant noise. It dominates what we do to the point where we think it's us. But it's not. You hear people at meetings sometimes say, well, when I get up in the morning, my mind is there and it's waiting on the end of the bed and it tells me what to do. And if your mind is that much in control, then it's not your mind. You're its body. But it's not your mind. You wouldn't take that shit from your hand. If your hand said, hey, I want to do, hey, wait for me, But the deal is we have somehow confused the entity that should be there with thinking. And somehow that if we think about it. And Bill Wilson also wrote, right before the third step prayer, a few lines that again hit on the same point, and that is, as we become conscious of His presence, we will lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. We will be reborn. And Shakespeare asked a great question in one of his soliloquies. He said, to be or not to be? Well, the only way to be is not to be. You have to be absent so that presence can arrive. You can't be there taking up the space saying, fill the cup, but it's already filled. I know, fill the cup, So the deal is we play this mental game that we think is real, but it's just made up. Time is the most used noun in the English language. You never hear any word used more than time. You got time for this? What time am I picking you up? What time is it? Time, and it's all made up. It doesn't exist. You get on a plane and somebody says, well, when we get there, it's going to put your watch ahead 3 hours, set it back 8 hours. Even the brightest mind of his time, Einstein, said time is a flexible phenomenon. And how you experience it is based on the mood you're in. If you're enjoying something, time moves very quickly. If you're not enjoying something, it moves very slowly. And that's the theory of relativity. People think it's a complicated theory. It's not. Einstein said, I could teach this to third graders. And he went in and he did. He said, what subject do you dislike the most? Math. And what do you like the most? Phys ed. Which of those seems to go faster? Phys ed. Math is really long, And that's the way it is. So we have this ingrained in our head that this thing we call other than the now, other than where this presence is, Dr. Silkworth wrote, in the doctor's opinion, we are restless, irritable, and discontent. Restless, irritable, and discontent. We want to be somewhere else, with someone else, doing something else all the time. And then we wonder why we have this anxiety gap. The anxiety gap is being here and wanting to be there. And mentally thinking I can do that. I'm always amazed with whether you're a newcomer or an old-timer, you actually think you could be someplace else other than where you are. Did you ever try spending a whole day trying to hang out with yourself? So what are we going to do now? Hey, I haven't got time for now. There's a lot of stuff from the past I'm working on, And there's a lot of phantom fear about the future. I got to get rid of, I have these problems that I'm never going to have to deal with, but I got to have solutions, So don't interrupt my day with now. I haven't got time to do that right now. I'm doing other things, That's why God invented a piece of furniture for us. He calls it the lazy boy. We can sit there all day long in contemplation, answering questions, going places, doing all kinds of things, and maybe have a beer or two. And then at the end of the day, go to bed and say, whew, tough day. Tough day. And people are looking at you like you wasted the day. Are you kidding me? Did you realize that in the future, if this were to happen, which it probably won't, maybe won't, well, almost impossible, I'm ready. But what's going on right now, who got time for that? You know? And as I said, that's why we don't have experience. You know? T.S. Eliot wrote a great poem, and the poem was called The Four Quartets. And he said, all of life is a journey back to where we started and getting to see it for the first time. And that's what we do in AA. You know, when you come into AA, it's amazing the recall you have of these unbelievable events with such clarity that never happened. You know? But you can recall them at an instant, you know. Not only can I recall that, but I'll give you the dates and the places, you know. But this whole thing of being in the now. And it's really hard. You know, when I arrived here this morning and I was sitting here, I was watching you folks come in, and it hit me that if you're like me, many of you were right here, right now, but you hadn't arrived yet. I love people going, oh yeah, I know this is really important. What are you saying? Checking world events. No. What you're saying is very critical. Just, I haven't got time for it. You know. And that's where we are today. We are so totally distracted from the one who has all power. And then we wonder why people come and share, I have a hole in my chest. I have a hole in my head. I got a hole everywhere. You know, I'm just one big orifice. You know, so the reality is simply because we don't know how to hang out where we are. And that's why good sponsorship is so important. A good sponsor would say, well, what are you going to do right now? Right now, right in this moment. What's the next step? And that's what all the steps are. You look at every promise, it's based on the now. You look at everything in AA that was ever written, it's based on the now. We don't have into thinking, we have into action. You know, the theme of the 12th step is the joy of living. But the key word is action. People think that it's thinking, you know. And what they don't realize, and I didn't for the longest time until one day it just happened to happen. And when it happens to happen, you can't tell anyone because you don't know what happened. You just know it did. You know it did. You listen to people share. I've heard this at least 100 times in the last 44 years I've been here. And that is, somebody will say, I was coming home from work in the same car, heading to the same house, just having left the same job to see the same family. Physically, nothing had changed, but everything was different. Everything was different. Kelly shared that last night. I do something here that seems totally irrelevant to my life. It happened 30 years ago, 25 years ago. Who gives a hoot? You know, that's like milking a mouse. You know, a lot of activity, but very little milk. You know. And the deal is, it's like, you know, I'm doing it over here, and then what happens over here is the deal. You know, it's like a magic act. You know, by the time you see the rabbit, you've missed the trick. The trick is over, folks. Even the remedial people say, rabbit. You know, like they pick up on that. So the deal is that living the day. So how do you do this? How do you do this? You do it by developing things in your life that keep you in the now. They can be simple things. I used to start out by putting a rubber band on my wrist. And that rubber band reminded me that I was drifting out of the present. So I'd snap it and try to bring myself back. I know guys that I started sponsoring, they'd have bands all the way up both lines, in case one broke, I guess. And, you know. And everything in AA, and there's no exception to this, is a paradox. People say, well, that's a paradox. Everything in AA is a paradox. You have to surrender to win. You have to give it away to keep it. You have to get sick so you can get well. You have to die so that you can live. Everything is a paradox. And the more you become aware you're not in the now, the more in the now you'll be. The more you start to function with, I'm not there, I'm there. I'm not in this moment, I am. And you start to realize that I am not my mind. My mind is just a part of me, just like everything else. And the entity that I choose to call God, simply because I don't know another word that makes it work, is the fact that I've seen people come into AA who believe in God and they get sober. I've seen people who don't believe in God or say they don't and they get sober. But I've never seen anyone come into AA who thought they were God get sober, ever. We have to, Bill put that line in there, we have to quit playing God. And how do you quit playing God? You heard it last night. Kelly talked about it for 30 minutes. You start by not looking at someone else and what they're doing, but what am I doing? You know, the minute that you start evaluating another human being or an event or a thing, you have lost your being. You are now all in your human form. You've lost your conscious being. Your conscious being is gone because now you're entrusting your whole existence to another human being to do something that they've never done before. And now you're expecting them to do it. Or to stop doing something they've never stopped doing before, and now you've empowered them over your life to stop doing it. That's what will make you happy. You know? It's not the way it is. The way you see life either imprisons you or it frees you. And if you're in the moment, it frees you because you realize, hey, everybody is just doing the best they can. You know, when a rhinoceros is born, it's already reached the quintessence of rhinocerosity. It's not going to be any more rhinoceros than it is. But when human beings are born, we're just set on the path to become the ultimate. And the ultimate is to be who we are. Not to be anyone else, to be who we are. I had an old-timer in Brooklyn slam me against the wall, and he said the most critical thing I'd ever heard in my life up to that time, and had I heard it in grade school, it could have changed my whole life. And he said, boy, be what you is, and not what you ain't. Because if you is what you ain't what you is. How profound is that? How profound is that? You know, like, be what you is. Learn to grow where God plants you. Learn to be who you are. You know, if you wake up in the morning and you're a daffodil and you want to be a rose, you're in for a long day. You know, you are in for a long, long day. You could go to therapy forever. You could go to seminars forever, but eventually, now that you're out of money, I can tell you, you're a daffodil. You know, and I think you're always going to be a daffodil. You know, I don't mean to ruin your moment, but that's what you are. You're a daffodil. If I've ever seen a daffodil, you're it. You know, but we don't know how to do that. We don't. We always think that there should be something else that we should be. And the end result of that is we're busy doing nothing. Busy doing nothing. This program is about being into action. It's not about being into activity. Activity isn't what it's about. It's about action. It's doing something. And it doesn't matter what you believe. You know, there's one book that's quoted in the big book, and that's The Variety of Religious Experience by William James. And if you've ever read that book, and it's not an easy book to read, but if you ever read it, he makes very clear that what you believe is totally irrelevant. It doesn't matter. If you think frogs are God, then frogs are God. It doesn't matter what you believe. It's what that belief does to transform you as a human being to think of others and to be of service and to live the best life you can. And if your belief is doing that for you, it's working. And if it's not doing that, you're scratching shit that don't itch. You know, like you're spending a lot of time doing stuff that just isn't going to work. You know, keep you busy. You know, hey, what are you doing? I'm busy. You know, well, what are you changing? Nothing, but I'm really busy. You know. And the deal is that we live in a society where there's a lot of high tech that keep people busy all the time. Just to have a conversation anymore. Next time you're in a restaurant, look around at how many people are talking. I mean, you have people sitting across from each other eating a whole meal, and all they're doing is checking their phone to see who's updating them. You know? Facebook's, by the way, if you know Facebook's slogan, their slogan is, done is better than perfect. Do something. Get it done. Once you get it out, then somebody else can improve on it. There isn't a piece of technology we have today that didn't start with something very basic. You know, the smartphone started with, hello, 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 you know. And now we got phones that do everything but, well, I won't go there. But the deal is that we are preoccupied with stuff. And that stuff isn't who you are. You know, everything is on loan. You know, I came into this world with absolutely nothing. And I still have most of it. You know? And that's the way life is. It's not about accumulating to the point where if you're accumulating and you're helping, good. The Bill Gates of the world, great. They're helping a lot of people. But if the whole idea is to look at me, then we're missing out. And that's why we have this concern. I love meetings where I go and somebody says, you know, the electric bill was $37 and suddenly in the mail came a check for $40 that I didn't know about and I paid the electric bill. I love those stories. But I love better the stories where the check doesn't come in the mail. Then what sustains me? What sustains me when nothing is going right? When everything seems to be going wrong. I live out by the ocean, so I see tides. And sometimes it seems like the tide's coming in and everything is coming your way. And then there are other days where the shit hits the fan. And you realize it's not being dispersed evenly. You know, and you're getting a lot, you're getting somebody's share, that's for sure, you know. And the bottom line is that we are taken away from the moment. And every time we are removed from the moment, we're removed from the possibility of contact with a higher power. God is always standing there present saying, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. And we want to use him, and that's the key word, almost like a pimp. I'll do this for you today, but you got to do this for me tomorrow, you know. Otherwise, I can't work this corner anymore. I got to go to another corner, you know. And the deal is that's not the way it works. You know, a mystic, by definition, is someone who knows God through experience. And if you have taken the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous, both parts, if you've taken both parts, and you have a sobriety date, and you are sitting here this morning, you are a mystic. You know God through experience. Whether you're conscious of it or not, you know God through experience, because something was done for me and for you that we had absolutely no power to do anything about. Lack of power, that's our dilemma. We're not helpless, but we're powerless. You know? And when people say to me, what's the spiritual path, Ken? I say, to the best of my ability today, what I think it is it's being in the moment as much as I can be. and seeing life the way it really is. Trying to remove the layers that have been built up over the years. The beliefs, got to go. The theories, got to go. The fantasies, got to go. All of these things that keep me from seeing what's really real have to be removed. And then when it's done, what's left is reality. And that reality is God. Even the word spiritual, if you look at it, inside the word spiritual is the word ritual, R-I-T-U-A-L. And that simply means that you have to develop a ritual for yourself that keeps you in the moment so that you can enjoy the presence of God. I have rituals. I have the rubber band when I started out. I don't use that today. But every time I stop at a red light, I say, thank you, God, for keeping me here with you. Every time the phone rings, I don't pick it up on the first ring. I wait till the second or third, and I say, God, thank you for being sober. Trying to remind myself that no matter what I think I am nothing more than a part of this cosmic greatness. I am nothing more than some part of the whole. And that whole is part of me. God is everything or He's nothing. God is everything or He's nothing. And actually, He's both. Out of nothing comes everything. That's what the physicists tell us. So therefore, nothing must be something. And if nothing is something and God is everything, and He's that. Doesn't seem that tricky to me. And the bottom line is that He's always there for me to acknowledge and to tap into if I'm so inclined. And what keeps me from doing that is my own will. My own will. That spiritual axiom, every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there's something wrong with us. And if we can accept that, then what happens, it enables me to deal with the one who has all power. You know, I got sober in New York with a lot of guys who, like me, got through school totally unscarred by education. You know, like they, they think Joan of Arc is Noah's wife. You know, like these guys are not your bright bulbs. They're out there where the buses don't run. You know, like you're in a mall and you're looking at the mall chart and it says you are here, and these guys say, "How do they know?" So the bottom line is that you don't have to be particularly brilliant. All you have to do is to be present. Try to be present in your own life. And try not to get distracted from all the nonsense or with all the nonsense that's going on. When I hear how it works being read in my home group or here or anywhere, I close my eyes. And the reason I close my eyes is I don't want to see who's getting coffee. I don't want to see who came in late. I don't want to see who's going back with who or who's leaving who. Or I don't want to have any distractions, because we read the critical part of the program to the newcomer and to the old-timer. And that is, there's one who has all power. Rarely have we seen a person fail. We deal with alcohol. It's cunning. It's baffling. It's powerful. Way too powerful for me. It's already proven that. And alcohol is a good foe because it takes us from the now. The ego takes us from the now. Everything that we think is cute takes us from the now. And the bottom line is the more distracted you are, the more distracted you are. You want to have fun with somebody, take a newcomer to the movie. And get there early when the screen's blank. And tell them, see that screen? That's God. He's going to be here all the time. But in about 15 minutes, you won't even recognize him. They'll start the movie. And it'll be an action film or romance or whatever. And you'll become totally engrossed in the movie, and there won't be any thought of the screen. that you'll be so caught up in the make-believe of what's going on. I'm laughing, I'm crying, I'm upset, I'm scared. This picture is wonderful. And then it's over, and guess what happens? Screen comes back. And you say, that was there all along. It never went anywhere. I went somewhere. It was constant. It was there all the time. But I'm not there. I haven't showed up for where I'm at. You know? Do you ever sit in school and have somebody question you with like, where are you? What are you thinking of? Like somehow you should know. You know, like, I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know what I don't know. That should be a song for AA. I don't know what I don't know. And you don't know what you don't know. And together we don't know. We don't know. You know, like, you know? So that's the way it should be, you know. And the deal is here is that the now thing goes on and on and on. And I'm always interested in listening to people tell me how they find God. Because some people feel you got to do unbelievably crazy things. Like you have to go to Tibet and get dysentery. You know, like you have to come back with some rare disease from a place nobody ever heard of. Yeah, but that's where God is. Well, you know, I'm sorry you did all that, but he was right here. You could have found him right here. You didn't have to do all that heroic stuff. But yet we do, because the ego convinces us that's what makes us. This is the greatest trick the ego has pulled in my life. It's guaranteeing me that if I do something very noteworthy and heroic, it will give me immortality. I already got immortality. It's given me a gift I already have. I mean, is that really a con game or what? In the city, we call that trading fish for cash. You know, like, what do you got? Oh, this is really good fish, though. This is pearl fish. You know, we don't know what we don't know, and I love being around people who are trying to find out, and that's why I love Alcoholics Anonymous. We were talking last night that the difference between hanging out in AA and hanging out in the bar is when I hung out in the bar, people were showing me the worst of themselves. When I hang out in AA, they're trying to show me the best of themselves. They're trying to show me what works and how to go about it. And as I said, we all take different paths. It doesn't matter what the path is that we take. The main thing is that we're all going to the same place. We were all sent out from the same home office. And we're going to be, you know, a guy the other day told me he couldn't go to meetings anymore, as many meetings because he's going to the gym. I'm going to the gym, Ken. I'm working on my vehicle. I don't want to upset your day, but that vehicle you're working on is a loner. You know, you're going to have to give it back at some time. It's a recall, you know. So you just keep taking care of your being and your vehicle, you know, and you'll be fine, you know. But when it goes, what are you going to be left with? And we are human beings, which means we are beings that are having a human experience. You've heard that many, many times. And it's the human form, the form of us, that takes up 100% of our attention most of the time. We are very seldom tuned in to the being part of us. And the reason being is we are willing to trade that off for almost anything that gives us comfort. We are busy going somewhere. Only to find out it really wasn't worth the trip. You know? There was a guy, a great spiritualist in the Catholic Church. He was so radical, they didn't like him. They put him in jail. But he was John of the Cross. And John of the Cross said, to get to the place you've never been, you're going to have to go away you've never gone. And the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 traditions is that path. It's allowing yourself to be surrendered at each step so that you can do the next step. And you have to give up what doesn't work, even though it may be comfortable. The good is the enemy of the best. You know, the good is always the enemy of the best. This gives me comfort. I'm happy. I seem like I should be okay now. No. What you're doing is you're stopping and rationalizing to yourself that you've done what you know internally you haven't done, and that's why there's always this churning and anxiety. You know? I used to watch the kids down at Seaport Village where I live fly kites. And I love to talk to those kids because they're very intelligent. They're like 10, 11 years old. They're at the peak of their intelligence because they haven't been through the school system yet. And I said to this kid one day in San Diego in June, we have what's called June gloom, where the clouds come down and kind of hang over the coast. And this kid's kite was above the clouds. And I went over to him and I said, how do you know your kite is still there? And he didn't blink an eye. He just looked at me and he said, 'cause I can feel the pull of it, mister. I can feel the pull of it. And that's the pull of God in my life. When I'm doing what I should be doing, I feel that pull in a real positive, genuine, serene, content way. And when I'm not doing it, it's just as strong going in the other direction. It's never a neutral state since I've got sober. Since I got sober and no longer had alcohol to protect me, reality just started rushing in. And it hasn't stopped. And it hasn't stopped. And it doesn't make any difference where you are. You know, in the 12th step, there's a couple of lines. And they're so important to me. And those lines are, we do well when we learn to play well the cards that we are dealt. Not the cards we want, but the cards we're dealt. And learning to play the cards we're dealt well allows us to be content and to remain right size. Right size. Not bigger than who I am, just being who I am. Not being less than, but not being more than. Being just content to be with one who has all power. Why hang out with the secondary team when the one team, I don't know what part of that word throws people off, but it says all power. I've actually had people say, well, then how much does that leave for me? I know this is tricky, but let's go over it again, Sparky. We may have to revisit this, one more time, but let's start with all. Not but all. There is one who has all power. Okay, Sparky, this is a big roundup for you. This could be your biggest hit of the day. What does that leave for you? Is this a trick question? No, this isn't a trick question. But that's the way it is. And I know those guys. I know them personally. I hung out with them. Guys who actually made statements like, D, if I'm only using 10% of my brain, like they say in this article, what the hell am I doing with the other 30%? So you say, well, pace yourself. You got the whole day. It's early in the morning. Have another coffee. But this is the deal. I'm going to close with this because I know there's another deal coming up, but we'll get to the close. And that is, there's a poem. And it's a spiritual poem. And it says, you cannot catch hold of it, nor can you let go of it. In not being able to get it, you get it. When you are speaking, it's silent. When you are silent, it speaks. Silence and the now are so big in each of our lives, and yet probably get some of the least attention. When we drove out here when we were crossing the desert, there by Yuma in that area, and it's so very barren. It became obvious to me why all of the great holy men over the centuries went to the desert to get clear. They went to the desert to get clear because there were no distractions. There was nothing to take you away. The make-believe was gone. It was just the really real. And in the really real is a chance to meet the one who has all power. And you can't meet that power if your presence is if my presence is so occupied with other things. I have no opportunity to meet that power. But by being still and acknowledging that God is God, I have a chance. And you have a chance. And I took that phrase, which is a psalm from the Bible, and I know it's not a religious group. But if you look at that, be still and know that I am God. I ran numbers as a kid. When my dad died, I ran numbers. So I'm really good with numbers. I was failing third grade, making more than the teacher who was failing me. But that's the way life works out sometimes. It's not always fair. She had a lot of education. I had a lot of cash. So the way it was is that, in the streets we say when a man with experience meets a man with money, the guy with the experience will end up with the money, and the guy with the money will end up with an experience, And that's the way life is. It's a trade-off. And you got to be aware of what you want. And what you want should be to let go of everything. By not wanting anything, I have everything. By trying to get everything, I don't have anything. I spent a lot of years, looking at stuff in my life that masqueraded as important. And it took up a lot of energy, only to find out that it wasn't really worth it. It wasn't really worth it. And then I came into this little bozo AA program. And my sponsor said, you're going to be a good guy once we get you decrapped. And in your case, it's going to take a millennium, so I was so full of myself. And I got sober in New York where guys weren't afraid to tell you that. We didn't have political correctness yet. It hadn't seeped in. And I had guys tell me, look at me right in the eye, D, if your IQ ever gets to 50, I'd sell. And another guy said, I wish I could buy you for what I think you're worth and then sell you for what you think you're worth. I'd retire young, I'd retire young. So this is the deal, This is the deal. You can spend your whole life dealing with stuff that masquerades as important. But I'll tell you this, and I don't mean to be crude in telling you, but it's just a street saying, and that is, you can't shine shit. It just won't take a buff. You use up a lot of good rags, but it's never going to take a buff. You can deodorize it, you can package it, but don't try to buff it. And you go and you think of the things in life that I did that to. Just buffed it. Tried to buff it up. Tried to make the aroma go away. And it just was what it was. And it wasn't until I came here and somebody who really loved me looked me in the eye and he said, you'll never have to do another day like you did the day before you got here. You just won't have to do that. You can start moving forward. And that would be the message to me of AA and acting in the now. The most wonderful, wonderful thing about this program is we can start acting now like we want to be later. We can start acting right now. We don't have to take a seminar, get certified, take a class, pay a tuition. We can start acting right now like we want to be later. And that's the choice I get to make every day. Do I want to do that? And it's been really a wonderful trip for me. There's been bumps in the road. I've lost a lot of people, a lot of people who were close to me. I had a brother and sister who died of this disease a week apart. My sister went into the hospital at 54 in October of 85 and hemorrhaged to Christmas Day and died of cirrhosis. And my brother died New Year's Day the week after. I lost a brother and a sister a week apart, Christmas Day and New Year's Day. My dad died at 50 behind this. My other sister took her life. I know what the disease can do. I've seen its face up close in a box way too often. And now today, all I got to do is show up with you guys, drink some coffee, laugh a lot, and try to remember there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Thank you.